Hello, this is Psych 351, and as you should probably know by now, I'm Dr. Fox. All right, we're going to talk about Chapter 2 today. So, cultural processes. How does culture happen? One of the main things you need to talk about is social learning. How do we learn? How do we learn our culture? How do we transmit culture to future generations? How does culture survive? Okay, so we can describe that as social learning, acquisition of information or skill by new individuals, and usually it's transmitted between related individuals of the same species. You can see social learning between chimpanzees, dolphins, various other things. Um, it's fundamental to human culture. It's also fundamental to chimpanzee culture, so not to be elitist here. All right, so some basics here. There's emulation, imitation, and teaching. If I'm going to emulate, I'm going to try to achieve the same outcome. If I'm going to imitate, I'm going to copy what you're doing. Teaching is intentionally transmitting information to you. So, imitation, I'm copying the actions. I may not know exactly why it's going on. Emulation, I'm trying to hit the same outcome and I'm going to try to replicate the specific motions to get there. Um, these can happen without people being aware of it, either the learner or the teacher. But teaching is a more intentional process, let's say. So both of these involve what are called mirror neurons. These are still kind of theoretical, but we can see that, like, I play piano. If I was watching somebody playing piano, um, I might have activation of similar neurons as those that would activate if I was myself playing the piano. Interesting stuff. And this may be part of how we actually do this imitation, emulation, learning process. Mimesis, to mime, to copy, is probably the biggest part. That ability is probably the biggest part of how human culture came to advance so rapidly. Keep in mind that in the great span of life on Earth, this has happened really quick. Okay, so social diffusion is about how culture spreads. Um, it's happening constantly with human culture. One interesting thing is the idea of over imitation. So people may actually, and this has been demonstrated in experiments, um, people may copy exactly even the things that are not relevant. So, as noted in the book, there's been some cases where they insert in an experiment an irrelevant step into a process, and the imitator will actually copy all of it. Now, why would this be a thing that people would do? Well, we don't necessarily know exactly what is the reason for the success of a particular person who has done something that we want to do. So this is why Air Jordans sell so well, is that we don't, if you're a young person aspiring to become a basketball player, maybe it's the shoes. I'd better get the shoes like Michael Jordan wears, and then maybe I'll be a successful basketball player. So it's not necessarily that it makes a whole lot of sense, but that's what we do. Um, okay, so this also comes into play possibly with criminal and violent behavior. So the gangster rap kind of thing. A lot of those guys actually, a lot of the rappers, especially the early ones, actually were nice suburban lads who had like doctors for parents and stuff like that. But the gangsta persona was a great way to make money selling lots of records. Okay, tradition versus culture. Well, we have a tradition in my mainland family of turkey on Christmas. Um, that doesn't make us a culture, it makes us a part of a culture. Uh, so you may have cultures within tradition. Uh, traditions within culture, turn that around. So a culture might be made up of a whole lot of traditions. So tradition is a distinctive behavior pattern, um, and it persists over time, maybe transmitted socially. Culture is kind of a bigger thing, um, and a culture would contain probably a whole lot of different traditions. All right, so social cognition, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive those around us as either related to us socially or not. Um, we use language and we use cooperation really effectively to develop as human cultures. If we didn't have language and cooperation, we would not have made it through, you know, out of the extreme south of South Africa. Um, all right, so we don't have claws, we don't have big fangs, right? We do have intelligence, and so this is one of the possible things that made for human survival. Um, Burn and Whiten, intelligence is manifested in social life. Complex society selects for enhanced intelligence. So here we're talking about cultural intelligence being something that allowed us to survive. Um, and complex societies uh, shape how our intelligence develops. This even goes down to our neural development. So when you're born, we'll cover this later in the course when you're talking about language. You can learn any language as a little tiny infant, but um, after about 2 years old, it's going to get more difficult. You're not going to necessarily learn to hear the same sounds, even because there's pruning, there's profusion of neurons that happens in utero and in the first couple of years, and then there's not so many new neurons being formed. It's more like the ones you use stay, and the ones you don't use um, go away. Okay, ratchet effect, it's a wonderful thing. This is where culture advances, and it kind of has, like, if you've ever used a ratchet in a tool called a ratchet, you kind of click it in and it sticks and it ratchets. You could use it maybe with tie down straps. So you pull that strap and it sticks there and you pull it tighter and tighter. Well, in ratcheting in culture, um, this is kind of like how new developments stick, and then newer developments develop on top of those, and developments on top of those. And so this is how culture has gotten more and more complex. One term for the increasing complexity of culture. All right, so cumulative cultural evolution. This is how changes have accumulated over time. Um, Cultural intelligence hypothesis says that our intelligence may have, and I think we've already addressed a little bit the social brain hypothesis, the idea that it was this need to cooperate as multiple humans working together that allowed us to exist, to survive without, the claws and fangs and all that stuff. And so we now have to navigate really complex social worlds. And this allows us to adapt quickly within cultural settings or to new cultural settings. All right, transmitted, evoked. These are two terms for how culture may come about, cultural elements. Transmitted is what's been passed to you, to a person. Um, it comes from people before. Evoked is a response that has come about because of like external situations. So a few years ago, I had a student who did a paper on fishing and talking about whether it was transmitted or evoked, because people have been fishing for a really long time, right? But fishing initially probably came about as something evoked because, you need food, you see these fish swimming around, You got to figure out how to get the fish out. So fishing as a cultural practice kind of came about by necessity. And a lot of this kind of thing has happened because humans were migrating. Okay, so if you now Denisovan culture from Siberia, well, you know, that kind of paralleled Neanderthal, kind of around the same time you would have like these different groups of um, predecessors to physiologically modern humans. All right, well, so you got one group up in the north of the Eurasian landmass. You got a group in the south of the African landmass. They're different groups in different situations. They all end up moving all over the place, right? So now we got humans everywhere. Well, as humans have moved, you know, people went, we find the genetic components, the genetic tracks of those people from South Africa all the way in the Arctic, right? So as people went, they brought culture with them, they transmitted culture, and they also came up with new solutions, some of which have been around for, you know, tens of thousands of years now. All right. Two phases of social transmission: storage and reproduction. So the first phase is you see something somebody's doing, you're like, oh, cool, I like that, I'm going to remember it. And then you also have to be able to reproduce the behavior, or you can't say it's been effectively transmitted. Masudi talks about some components here. We have variation in culture, we have competition and inheritance, and between these, this is what determines what does survive, what passes on. And we can talk about vertical from one generation to the next, oblique from, you know, your aunts and uncles to you, horizontal is between your peers. Um, Conformist and prestige, why is a person transmitting the culture? Why is there this cultural element? Well, are you conforming to your social or cultural situation, or are you doing it because it's cool? It gets you um, mating opportunities, more food, something like this. All right. Enculturation is how we learn our culture. We're going to talk about acculturation later, which is adapting to a new culture. Um, Humanization, I'm not sure how I feel about that term, but the kind of we learn how to behave as the humans around us do through this process that just happens naturally when we're little babies. Um, so this is kind of a natural pedagogy. We watch, we absorb these things. You know, you think about Noam Chomsky and the idea that humans are language acquisition devices. You don't have to do anything for a little kid to learn language. They will gradually learn language unless there's something physically wrong with their brain. Otherwise, all this stuff just happens very, very naturally as humans develop. Now, when you're talking about more complex things, yeah, you got to go to school or something like that. You got to have extra training to learn to read or to become an engineer. All right. So cultural activities a lot of times will provide the setting for enculturation activities. Cooking is a wonderful one. You know, little kids hang around, they see mommy making food or daddy. I actually do most of the cooking in my house. And so the child is learning about cooking, but probably also there's people talking, they're telling stories. There's all kinds of things that may transmit as that food preparation is going on. All right, so cultural dynamics. I want to keep this fairly short. So there is cultural information. Uh, this is one of the tenets of cultural dynamics. And so it's possible that this information will be transmitted. Um, and this cultural information, this is part one that exists, can be transmitted. That's kind of part two there. Part three there needs to be a receiver who learns. And so there's success in transmitting the cultural information. And then um, the information is then distributed throughout a population and becomes characteristic of that population. So this is Kashima and cultural dynamics. Really interesting stuff to think about in terms of how culture exists, how it spreads, how it survives. There's identity information. Who am I? Who am I in relation to other people? What are we supposed to do together? Am I supposed to share with you, or are you somebody I'm supposed to keep from getting resources? You can see this even in politics, right? Um, Repeated learning, the system will get simpler as it goes along because people will transmit it multiple times. They'll figure out how to transmit it more effectively. Um, and then there are consistent and inconsistent ideas. Sometimes an inconsistent idea actually will transmit really well. All right. Counterintuitive elements are some of these ones that are a little surprising. Like, for instance, you may remember uh, like fairy tales, let's say the Three Little Pigs. All right, so you're talking about um, a device that's going to transmit, whoops, one moment, I've got something going on in the background here.